Hello there, my fellow Buddhist Savas. Welcome to today's video. I am your host, Richard, aka Richard Lion King, reporting for duty. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about my story as to how I formed my connection with Nichiren Buddhism. Now, it goes without saying that both my parents wanted me to chant and would always guide me to going to meetings and chanting in front of the Gohonzon. And for those that don't know, a Gohonzon is a scroll containing Chinese and Sanskrit characters that aid practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism in the process of perceiving and bringing forth the life condition of Buddhahood. The scrolls are placed in altars in our homes where we enshrine the Gohonzon. Even though I was Buddhist, I had not made a personal connection with my Buddhist practice up until I was 22 years old. Reason being is due to my father passing away several years beforehand, and it was at his memorial that I made a vow to embrace Buddhism in order to understand why he himself felt so strongly about it. 3 years after my father passed away, I attended a Buddhist meeting to which we would learn that we would be performing and traveling to various places in the form of Orlando and Philadelphia, where we would basically be performing in the hopes of introducing people to Buddhism through our efforts in our performances. These performances included brass band, dance, as well as like taiko drums. And what was very interesting about this experience with this meeting, because this was before I had established my connection with Nichiren Buddhism, is that I was able to feel the spirit of my father during my participation within this meeting. It was basically right at the end of the meeting where I was just kind of sitting there, kind of taking in the news that we would be slowly attending meetings every weekend in preparation to be able to travel, and I just felt the wind blowing, and as the wind was blowing, I thought about my father. It's like as the wind was blowing, feelings and thoughts and emotions in relationship to him just kind of washed over me. It was as though he was there encouraging me to move forward on my path to connect with Nichiren Buddhism. Continuing on, I decided to join the brass band, and what's really interesting, and this is one of the reasons why I believe my father, after passing away, stayed and re-entered my life in a spiritual way in order to encourage me to connect more with the practice, because the trumpet that I decided to use in the brass band that I participated in was actually a trumpet that he bought me. Now, what's interesting about this is that this trumpet was an instrument that my father originally bought me when I was in elementary school, and he basically bought it with the intention and goal that one day me and him would be able to play together. Me the trumpet and he the saxophone. Reason being is because jazz music was his favorite music and he always wanted to be able to play with me. Unfortunately, while my father was able to buy me the trumpet and had suggested that later on he would get the saxophone, he ended up passing away before we had the opportunity to play together. So I had my trumpet since I was in elementary school, and even though I made attempts to try to learn about it, I was not able to find the motivation or the courage to want to learn how to play. Even though I had several opportunities, I joined several band classes both in elementary and middle school, but the motivation just wasn't there to learn. Now, I find it very interesting that the very same trumpet that my father bought for me, who was also very passionate about Buddhism and chanting, was the very same trumpet that I would end up using in an attempt to connect more to my Buddhist practice, which I know my father was connected to. So it was almost as though, in a very mystic way, the trumpet that my father had bought for me all those years ago was a trumpet that was given to me for the sake of Kosen Rufu, which is world peace, because the whole purpose of Nichiren Buddhism is for us to achieve world peace through our actions. It's basically an inner transformation within ourselves, which is what's going to enable peace to come to fruition on planet Earth. So it was very mystic, and what's really interesting is that even though I attended every single brass band practice with my trumpet that my father gave me, I struggled to produce any notes. It was so difficult for me. it was so difficult being around all of my other brass band comrades who, even though they were very encouraging and very nurturing, it was painful to see how they were all advancing in learning how to play the various music that we were supposed to play. And even though I attended every single meeting, and even though I chanted, and even though I was challenging myself to take part in this, I was not able to produce any music aside from barely being able to blow within the mouthpiece of my trumpet. But I couldn't retain any information from the music that we were reading, and I wasn't able to learn. However, despite the fact that this was the case, the time for us to perform in both Orlando and Philadelphia, because these were the two places that we were supposed to travel, the time to perform was steadily approaching, and after about a month, it was time for us to perform in Orlando. So we basically got on the bus, and what's really interesting is that while we were basically riding, I was thinking about the fact that, I had decided before it was time for us to go to Orlando that I was going to not take part in the brass band performance because I felt like there was no purpose, because I hadn't been able to teach myself anything. I think I felt as though I was a real failure, that I wasn't able to learn how to play, and I didn't think there was any point. However, there was a young man who goes by the name of, actually I'll just call him D. Basically, a friend in the practice by the name of D encouraged me to attend the meeting regardless. And even though I was very hesitant, I decided to go, even though I didn't really know how to play aside from maybe one note on my trumpet and just knowing how to blow. I decided to travel. I decided to spend the money. I decided to travel on bus. I decided to travel from my home in Miami all the way to Orlando with my brass band comrades, even though I was going into this with the knowledge that I may very well embarrass myself going up on stage in front of tons of people with my comrades, not knowing how to play, even though it felt like at this point I should know how to play. But I went through the process, and when it came time for us to do our final performance, and I was practicing in a hotel that we were staying at, as we were preparing for the next day, I was able to see that despite everything, despite all of my efforts in chanting, I still wasn't able to produce more than one note. However, I persevered. I decided to go with it anyway, and when it came time to do the actual performance, when we were actually on stage and then the lights came down and I looked in the crowd and saw the people, and I basically got in position to play notes on my trumpet, something very mystic happened that I can't really describe even to this day. But it felt as though that even though I beforehand didn't know how to play, it seemed as though something mystic happened where my fingers magically were able to press upon the trumpet itself, and it felt like I was able to somehow uncover the wisdom of how to play the song. It was as though the wisdom had been locked inside of me as to how to actually play, and during the critical moment when it mattered the most, I was able to actually play my trumpet. It was very strange because up until this point, I had attended these meetings and I wasn't able to do anything beyond blowing in the trumpet and just doing one note. But when it came time to actually perform, I was somehow able to play. Now, the reason that I believe that this is the case is because one of the core principles of Nichiren Buddhism is obtaining the life condition and the strength and developing and pulling out the strength within to never give up no matter what, to always persevere regardless of how hopeless it may look on the outside, to keep going no matter what happens. And it's in that determination, it's in that pursuit of whatever goal that you have is when the magic happens. As long as you persevere, right down to the very last moment, that is when the magic comes out. And that's essentially what happened for me. I had every reason in the world to want to give up because it wasn't working. I couldn't see how it was going to work. I felt embarrassed, but because of the fact that I learned to persevere, because of my comrades, the people in my practice who supported me and nurtured me and helped to push me forward, I was able to transform an aspect of my life. The me that wanted to quit when things don't look like they're going to work out, unknowingly I challenged this aspect of myself, and as a result I was able to see results at the very end. In the critical, most important moment is when I was able to bring out something within me that had been hidden. And that's what Buddhism is about. What Buddhism is about, what Nichiren Buddhism is about, it is about unlocking your inner potential and bringing it out when it is most important, when it's like do or die, when it's time to really break through. And that's why I now chant Nam-Myoho-Renge-Kyo. It was this event of going to brass band and being involved in Rock the Era and performing that I was able to build my connection, and how I was able to learn to never give up. And I give so much appreciation and credit to my brass band comrades, as well as President Ikeda, who is the Soka Gakkai leader of the Nichiren Buddhism SGI organization that I'm a part of, who mentions that the most important thing in performing and doing anything within SGI is to perform with the spirit to inspire. And I am very grateful that I was able to develop my inner determination due to President Ikeda's guidance. And I also want to thank my father. My father is the reason I believe that I was able to do so much of what I was able to do. Or it might be more accurate to say that me and my father joined together during all these things, and we were able to both play a role in advancing Kosen Rufu world peace by both being involved in this. And it's ironic because my father, I didn't spend a lot of time with him growing up, but one thing that I remember the most about him was the fact that he always told me that me and him were always very connected by virtue of the Buddhist practice that we were both involved with. And it's interesting because the Gohonzon that is currently in my house that I chant toward is the Gohonzon that he owned. Originally, he chanted in front of it for many years, and then the day before he passed away, it was actually sent to my house, to me and my mother, and we didn't know that he was going to pass away, but the very next day he passed away. And I'd like to believe that that could also be the reason why I was able to feel his presence during a very critical moment in my life. And I am very grateful to my father, and I'm grateful to you, the listener. So I just wanted to express why I chant Nam-Myoho-Renge-Kyo. It's not just because I was born into it. It's not just because my parents wanted me to chant. It's because I found myself in a situation where I was able, through chanting and through my practice, I was able to challenge the part of me that wanted to give up when things seemed hopeless, when it seemed like it wasn't going to work out. And this is why I encourage you, if you find yourself having a struggle in your life that you find yourself not able to get over, or if you find yourself thinking like it's pointless to try to achieve whatever goals that you have, I encourage you to just say these words. If you say these words right now to yourself, then your life will begin to change, and you will be able to transform whatever you're dealing with. All you have to do is say Nam-Myoho-Renge-Kyo. So Nam-Myoho-Renge-Kyo, and I promise you, your life will change. Just in you saying these words, your life will change. Anyway, that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos on the subject of Nichiren Buddhism, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you later. This is Richard, aka Richard Lion King, signing out. Bye-bye.